This is the connect. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I just realized I was muted. I was going through my whole spiel. This is Charlie at KDLA, and I promise I've been doing this job longer than one day. Awesome. Amateur. No. So welcome, everyone, to our webinar about library friends. I'm just going to go through some quick housekeeping information. If you have any questions or technical issues today, you can chat those in the chat pod on the right-hand side of the screen. We are going to try to take questions as we go, and we're also going to have some time for discussion at the end to talk about everybody's particular scenarios or anything like that. The PDF of today's slides is available for download in the Blackboard Learn window, as well as a couple of additional handouts that Wayne has provided. So if you haven't gotten those, you'll be able to get them. You can get them now or after the webinar is fine. The webinar is being recorded, and it will be available in our online learning portal within 1 week. If you do have people at your library, maybe in your friends group or community, who are interested in this webinar and they don't want an account with the online learning portal, that's fine. The recording will be also available on our archive webinars page, and you'll just be able to click that and send them to the YouTube page. And then finally, the webinar is being live captioned. You can watch it within Collaborate. You should have gotten a notification about that at the top of your screen, or you can also use the stream text link that I've just put into the chat. That will open the captioning in a separate window where you can modify it. You can modify the size of the text and things like that for your needs. So with that being said, I am going to assist Mary with her sound, so maybe ignore the chat for a second, see if I can help her out. But at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Wayne Onks, our presenter for today.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Well, if you can't, I'm sure you'll let Charlie know. My name is Wayne Onks, and I am currently the president of the Friends of Kentucky Libraries. Prior to that, I was commissioner of KDLA. I preceded Terry Manuel. Held that position for about 9 years. It's great to see so many new names. I've met some of you, I've emailed some of you, but many of you haven't met. It's great to see your interest in the Friends, and it's great to be able to communicate with you. And I hope that we'll be able to communicate a lot more in the future about the Friends. Prior to the time that I was commissioner, I was director of the Kenton County Library. So I have been a library director, and we had a great Friends group. So I have some personal experience with Friends, both good and bad. But we'll talk a little bit about that also during our talk today. But anyways, I'm grateful that you're joining us, and grateful that you are interested in starting a Friends group or building on what your Friends group has already done. First off, I want to give just a little commercial about the Friends of Kentucky Libraries. The Friends of Kentucky Libraries were established in 1938. We've been around for a long, long time. At that point, there were very few libraries in Kentucky other than those in the cities, very, very few in the rural areas. And the Friends were created to advocate for the creation of public libraries. They did that for a number of years. The Friends were responsible for purchasing the first bookmobile used by the state. And you see a photograph here. I thought you might be interested in seeing that. Bookmobile history is very interesting, and I'm getting ready to do a history of that. That's a topic for another session. You can see the Friends web address there, and we have some resources there, so that's one place to go for information. We currently have about 40 chapters around the state. Some are more active than others, some are very active, and some are not very active. But there's about 40 libraries that have established Friends chapters, and we communicate with them on a regular basis. Currently, we work on organizing advocacy, making sure the chapters know what's going on and they can advocate for us. We start and mentor Friends chapters, and we also hold an annual meeting. Now, we haven't done that for a couple of years, but we will be holding an annual meeting this year. It's the usually on the same day as the Kentucky Book Fair, and we have friends from all over the state who come together, talk about what they're doing. We have a speaker, and it's just a good time for exchange of information. So if you do have a friends group, or you're getting ready to start a friends group, we hope you'll keep that in mind. We'll be getting more information out about that. We do have we have individual memberships of the Friends of Kentucky Libraries. You can find that information on our website, and we also have chapter memberships. And it's just a good way to keep communication going among all the friends. So we hope you'll take a look at that. All right, I'm very glad that you're interested in starting a friends group or building a friends group. But I think one thing that we want to make sure everybody understands is how a Friends chapter can support a public library. And there are numerous ways. One primary way is provide additional sources of revenue. Now, and I know that's a concern for everyone since we no longer have state aid, and since there are a lot more regulations on how library boards can raise tax revenue. With the new law coming in, there may be even more restrictions on your income. So it may be that you need an additional source of revenue. Many of the Friends chapters that we have support a particular program or service. Maybe they support the summer reading club, that they raise money particularly for that. Maybe it's the Dolly Parton Library, Imagination Library. Some others provide a stream of revenue each month for book purchases. The Friends of the Hardin County Library provide, I believe it's $500 every month, purchase books. So if you have a particular program or service that you're interested in promoting, it's really a good way for the Friends to pick up a cause and support it. There may be unbudgeted needs that arise during the year that you need to take care of. Being a former library director, I know every year there was something came up unexpectedly that maybe we didn't have in the budget, or maybe we didn't have enough funds for, we didn't expect it. I felt that I could go to our friends each year and say, hey, this is something that's come up. Would you be interested in supporting it or paying for it or helping out with it? And there are also sometimes needs that you really may not want to use public funds for, especially in these days when there's so much focus on how libraries are spending their money. We have a number of friends groups that pay for their staff Christmas party, which is, I think, a legitimate use of public money, but it may be that it may draw attention that you don't want to draw attention to. We also have some friends groups that support their staff during Staff Appreciation Week. They may buy snacks, they may buy gift cards or whatever as a token of appreciation for the staff. Things that you might not want to take that money out of your public funds. We also have friends groups that support purchases for the staff lounge. Recently, we had a friends group that bought a picnic table for their staff to use outside on nice days, and even built an awning over it. So there may be things that you just not comfortable using your tax revenue for, or your board may be not comfortable. Good way for friends to spend their money. So those are all ideas that Friends chapters in Kentucky have already used. A friends group is also a good way to build a volunteer base for your library. You may need volunteers. There are a number of friends groups that provide volunteers for various programs. I know that the friends group in Princeton, Kentucky provides volunteers for a Christmas program that they do every year. They have a big Polar Express program. Draws in tons of kids. They need lots of help, and the friends look forward to supporting that program with volunteers and with funds each year. The Casey County Library, really strong chapter. They provide volunteers, and I received a note from them recently that they were in the process of cutting and stringing 2,977 white butterflies that would hang from the library ceiling as a 9/11 memorial. And they also for Veterans Day, they hang 1,000 doves representing those who have served Casey County in the services. So those are the type of things that your friends group can help with volunteers for your summer reading club or any other program that you want, maybe genealogy or whatever. The friends groups can also provide a qualifying agency for some grants. As you know, some grants require a 501c3 organization. Public library is not a 501c3. But some granting organizations require that, including the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. So if you need an organization that can obtain a 501c3, your friends group can do that, and many of them in Kentucky have done so. And we'd be glad to talk to you about that. And in fact, the Friends of Kentucky Libraries provide reimbursement grants of $500 for libraries who obtain their 501c3. And finally, a Friends chapter can really support your advocacy program in a very strong way. They've done that in the past very well, and I believe with the new law coming in, Senate Bill 167, it may be that our advocacy efforts will switch from the state legislature to local advocacy. And in that case, your Friends chapter can be a really strong local advocacy group because they know your county judge, they see your county judge, and they vote for your county judge and your magistrates. So it may, as we don't know how this is going to unfold, but it may be that you need to make a strong advocacy effort locally. And a Good Friends chapter can really be strong advocates for you. Like I see your county judge or your magistrates in the grocery store or at baseball games, and they can make an impact. So I think this is maybe something that we will be looking at very strongly in the coming years. So those are some ways that your Friends chapter can support your library. There are many others, and many others that have happened in Kentucky, and I'm sure that you can think of some of those. Okay, we've talked about some of the benefits, and there are many. I mean, I think our Friends groups go above and beyond and do so many things. I've had library directors tell me that the Friends groups made their life so much easier, and it really improved their library program. They couldn't imagine having it without the Friends. And I think that's usually the case. That's the case because libraries have taken the appropriate steps to establish a Friends group and to build a Friends group, which we'll talk about. But a word of caution: if you want to start a Friends group that's strong and vibrant and doesn't cause problems, it requires nurture and care. We've all heard horror stories about Friends groups that went off the rails. And so this is just a word of caution to you before we go in. Friends groups are not turnkey. You cannot set one up and turn it loose. Doesn't and let it run. That will not work, and it will result in problems. It requires understanding of roles by both parties, and we'll talk about ways to do that. But the library needs to understand its role, the Friends need to understand their role, and they need to understand each other's roles so that you can work very effectively together. You need regular communication. The library director or staff and board need to know what's going on with the Friends. And the Friends need to know what's going on in the library and what the library's needs are. And that needs to be regular communication, particularly as your Friends group gets started. Talk about ways to do that. And you need to have appropriate documents to start your Friends group so that everything's in writing, everything's clear, If there are issues, then you can refer back to those written documents that everybody agreed to in the beginning. So those are just a word of caution, and we will talk about those things as we proceed. Okay. I want to make sure that we also understand the relationship between the library and its friends. They are legally separate organizations. You have separate boards. You have your library board and your friends board. Separate leadership. Library director, and you'll have your friends executive committee. The finances have to be separate. For legal reasons, you don't want your friends' finances mixed up with the libraries. They need to be completely separate. There needs to be a wall between them. Everything has to be separate. Separate reporting. The reports that your friends need to make reports on their finances. The library needs separate reports. Your friends will probably have, especially if they have 501c3, will have reporting due to the government. You'll also have a report that you file with the Secretary of State's office, your friends. And your friends need to do that reporting. The library needs to do their reporting, and it needs to be different people and kept separate. And we obviously know that we want to be as transparent as possible, but those reports need to be separate so people can understand the differences. And there will be separate audits. Library has to do an audit, and your friends group also needs to do a regular audit. We have had issues with some friends groups that did not do an audit. The friends groups needs to have controls, just like the library does, in how the money is held, how the money is spent, and that will be set up as part of your documentation for your friends. There should be a memorandum of agreement that is established. Your library agrees to it, and the friends agree to it when you start. We'll talk more about that in the future. This is the agreement that sets the boundaries, tells what the library's roles are, what the friends' roles are, and describes how the relationship will work. Okay, how do you start? Now this is my plan, so I'm sure there's lots of ideas out there, lots of ways. United for Libraries, which is the ALA Friends organization, has a website. You can look it up, and they have a description of how to start. On the Friends of Kentucky Libraries website, we also have a section on how to start friends. This follows that fairly closely. There may be a little differences, but this includes some of the things that I have learned as I have dealt with friends groups. So I'm sure you'll find a way to use some of this. And if you have any questions about it, you can let me know. You may have some ideas of your own. But I found throughout my career, which has been long, I've been in libraries for almost 50 years. Everything that you do, you need to have a plan. If you have a good plan, your chances of success are so much better than if you don't. This not only for friends, this is everything you do. You can see it in your library, you can see it in your church, you can see it in your athletic boosters or your school or whatever. You got to have a plan. And I think this is certainly true with your friends. In order to developing your plan, the first thing you need to do, I think, as a library director or as library staff, is understand what do you expect your friends to accomplish. That's the first thing. Have a goal. Do you want them to raise money? If so, how much? And what do you expect? Do you want them to provide a volunteer base? If so, then identify what are those needs. What kind of volunteers do you need? Do you want to do advocacy? Or do you want a group that can receive grants as a 501c3? I think you just need to determine what your needs are. Write them down. Make sure you have a really good idea of what you want them to accomplish. If you don't, then they may not accomplish anything, or they may accomplish something you don't want. Now, this doesn't mean that this is the only thing they will accomplish, but this is a start, this is a foundation, and you can build from there. I think a friends group, a good friends group, will start out strong, accomplish what you wanted to, and then they will grow, and you grow with them. So that you may start out wanting them to just raise a few funds for some needs of your staff, and then once that's done, it can grow to volunteers, maybe raising money for other things. But you need to start with a base and expectation. Then once you have an idea of what you want your friends to accomplish, then you go to your board and your staff, and you can decide what order you want to do this in. But your board needs to be aware of what's going on. The board needs to be supportive. You're going to need their support, and you're going to need the support of your staff. And your staff may have some great ideas, what they feel like your library needs from friends, and they can add much to your plan. But your board and your staff need to be involved early and involved totally, so that they're on board with it. And finally, you need to determine which resources will be needed for your friend, for which your library resources will be needed for your friends. Because as we mentioned earlier, you can't just set up a group and then turn it loose. It's going to need some staff support and other resources. Now, hopefully, those resources that you provide to the friends will provide bigger benefits back to the library. That's the idea. You'll provide some resources, but those resources will be an investment in what your library can do with your friends. The staff contact is really, really important. I strongly advise that you have a staff member who is your friend's liaison. It could be you could be the person, or if you have a staff member that you think would be really good working with volunteers, that could be the person. But they need to be involved. They need to know what's going on with the friends. They're going to be your contact. If the friends need something, that's the staff member they go to. The staff member can keep the director informed or the board informed what's going on. They coordinate between the library and the friends. This staff contact is really, really important. They can take care of problems, small problems, before they get to be big problems. So it's really important that you have that staff member who is the contact. You also need to know how much space the friends are going to need. And this depends on what you want your friends to do. If you expect your friends to do book sales, then they're going to need space for storing books somewhere. They probably will need a little space for membership brochures, things like that. So you need to determine how much space is actually needed. And there may be other resources that will be needed. You probably want to have a board member who is a liaison to their friends also, in addition to the staff. I think that's really good. You want your communication between the board and the friends to be really strong. So it might be good to have a board member involved. Now, the question always comes up: how much can the board be involved? How much can your board? I think it's really good to have a board liaison. I think it's not so good to have a board officer, a board member who is an officer in your foundation or in your friends. You can't. I don't know that there's a law against it, but if you want to have one, I think that's okay. I certainly wouldn't have two. Everything has to be kept separate. The finances have to be kept separate. Your library board can't be directing the Friends board. The leadership has to be separate. So you want to limit how much board leadership you have. Your board, I hope your board members are members of your Friends, but they shouldn't be in the leadership. So those are some thoughts for your plan that you need to develop before you ever launch your Friends organization. Okay, step two. That's step number one. Step number two is recruit a core team. And the materials I've seen vary on how many. Some say more than dozens too many. You need at least 6 or 10. This is going to be the core group that gets you started. You can have too many because to get started, but and you can have too few. Maybe 6 to 10 is a good number. I don't know. But these are the folks that are going to get you organized and get your Friends off the ground. And then you will begin to get to gather other members. This is a start. And where do you get these folks? Well, and you may know some of them. Hopefully, you probably already do know some of them. Maybe some people have asked you how they can help. Maybe some of them you've already recruited. Would you be interested in being involved in our Friends? Maybe they're community. You have some volunteers already. Now, I've listed some sources here, and you probably already know these. Maybe folks who attend programs. I know that some Friends groups recruit mothers who attend children's programs. That's good. Or men and women who attend your community programs regularly on a regular basis. Folks, your users who come in regularly, and you recruit some of those. Former trustees, I think, are always a good resource. It's odd that we have our trustees who usually they serve 8 years, then they're off the board, we turn them loose and we let them go. I always tried to find a place where we could keep them involved some way, and the Friends is certainly one of those. Or there may be folks that you say, oh, I think Mrs. Jones would be a great prospective trustee. Maybe this is a way to introduce her to the library. So you might recruit her. Former staff members who are still interested. Your current volunteers. Most libraries have volunteers. They can recruit current folks. I would suggest also, you can decide whether you want to do this at the start or whether you do it later. Maybe you want to mention in your newspaper that you're starting a Friends group, you're interested, and see what response you get. Posters in the library, just so to make people aware. It's hard to get, some people would like to be maybe members of your Friends involved, but they're just not aware that's a need. And then just get the word out. Word of mouth is a good way. And I'm sure there's some folks on the call that has some other ideas too. You all are great at recruiting volunteers. You're always doing it. So you may have some thoughts about people that you would want as your core team. And this is what your core team does. What you would want to do, I believe the step is that you meet with your core team and you share your expectations of what you think the Friends would do. This is your plan. How do you think your Friends can help? What your expectations are, so they understand, and so they can get excited about that, and so that they know the expectations. You also want to listen to what their interests are. They may have some great ideas for what their Friends can do, what they would like to be involved in. Maybe they want to do book sales. Maybe they want to do something else. Maybe they would like to support a particular program or do a particular thing or whatever. But I think it's important that you share your side and you listen to their side and you come together. You identify temporary officers. Now eventually you're going to elect your officers, but for the interim, you're going to need a chairman, secretary, probably a treasurer to get you started. And they can serve until your group is organized and can elect its own officers. This group will need to create some bylaws for the organization to present at a first organizational meeting for the group to approve. There are lots of great examples of bylaws. You don't need anything extensive. We're not doing the Constitution. What we're doing is we're setting up who the permanent officers are, the purpose of your friend's organization, how often meetings will be held, how often you'll do elections, how you replace officers when they resign or retire or whatever, that kind of thing. We have lots of examples. And in fact, I think Charlie has an example that I gave her, which you can take a look at. As I mentioned, we have 40 friends groups across the state. They all have examples. They all have their own bylaws, which you can take an example of. So, and I'll be glad to provide you more examples if you'd like. It have to be basic, and once these would then be presented at your first organizational meeting of your friends group to approve. Friends of Kentucky Libraries have bylaws. I'll be glad to share those with you so you can see what those are like. And from time to time we amend them and all that stuff. But you need these bylaws so that everybody understands how the group's going to operate. And you also need to create a memorandum of agreement with the library board. Now this agreement, very specific, and I also provided an example to Charlie of that. Again, doesn't have to be long and extensive, but just a checklist. Here's what the library will do. Here's what the friends will do, so that everybody's roles are clear. And when issues arise, you can go back and say, well, okay, this is what the library does. This is what the friends do. And so everybody understands from the beginning what their roles are. And if somebody's not fulfilling their role, then we can step up to the organization and say, okay, here's what we agreed to. What are we going to do about it? So Charlie has that for you, and she'll be glad to provide that, and I'll be glad to provide different agreements. It's really, really important that you have this so that everybody understands. And finally, you'll need to file your nonprofit paperwork with the Secretary of State. Very simple filing. I think it's $5, and then you will be ready to roll. Okay. Now this is my email address, so you can email me with questions. I'll be glad to hear from you. Be glad to hear what your thoughts are. If you have any questions, we'll be glad to take care of that. Yeah, I know that there are some, and I'll be glad to take your questions now too, if you'd like to do some in the chat. I know there are some friends groups that have already established that are on the call. And so I wanted to give them an opportunity, if they would like, to talk about some of the things they're doing, or to ask questions. We spent most of our time on getting friends groups off the ground, but we have some friends groups around the state that are really, really active and really doing great work. It's been difficult during the last 2 years because, of course, everything has been shut down. And we're just now starting to re-energize. Now, I think most of the groups are back to fundraising, back to holding book sales, and beginning some more activities. And I think that will be picking up, particularly in the summer, as we roll along. But if there are some friends who are on, and I know that some are, I can see from the list, there are some from very active friends groups. If you'd like to talk about some of the things that you're friends groups are doing that people might be interested in, feel free to do that. I guess we do it in the chat. Charlie, is that the best way to do it?
Yes, I can set it to let everybody access their microphones if they want to share audio. That will be
Okay.
fun. Let me turn that on.
Okay. And I'll also mention to you that on the Friends of Kentucky Libraries website, which is friendskylibraries.org, we did it before. This is before COVID. We did a survey of friends groups and the kinds of activities they were doing. So you can go on, you can kind of see that. Now, this is from a couple of years, about 3 years ago, but it listed of the type of activities that people are doing. And it's really impressive the creative ways that libraries are using their friends group to support the library program. If you have any questions or you want to know what some people are doing, then you can go to that, I believe it's under resources on the website, and you can see it's a 20-page document that tells all the different things that friends groups were doing at that time.
I just want to say that I think I've given everybody access to microphones. So in the bottom middle portion of the screen, you should see a little microphone icon. And if you want to come on and speak, you can go ahead and do that. And let me turn on my sound. So
I do see a question from Mary Rowe. Do we need to use
Can you start over? I'm sorry.
Okay. Yes. The question is, do we need to use the friends group to have book sales? And the answer to that is no. Your library can do the book sales. If you want to reduce the amount of time and resources that it takes your staff, and you want the friends to handle the money so that your staff don't have to fool with that, then you can do friends. But friends are not required to have book sales. We have about 6 or 8 libraries at least now that have a bookstore, a friends bookstore in their libraries that are staffed by friends, operated by the friends. And I know that there are a lot of libraries that have shelves up just selling books. But and if that's the only reason you want to have friends group, I don't know that it's worth it. But you've got the friends are going to require some resources, staff, and space. And you've got to decide whether or not the benefit outweighs the cost. Some places maybe not. But I think in the 40 places where we have friends already, we can demonstrate that it is worth the effort.
Wayne?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Patty from Casey County Public Library Friends.
Hey, Patty, how you doing?
Just fine, Wayne. We actually do have a store. We stayed open all during the COVID pandemic. We actually went from 4 times a month down to 2. We are actually selling as much and having as many people as we did when we had 4 sales. What we do is we actually charge a membership fee of $5 a year. And what that does is it allows our members to buy books at a quarter a piece. Non-members will pay $1 a book. We have, actually right now, we have 99 current members for just this year. Last year, we had 133 members. Now, times that by 5, that keeps us very liquidated. At this time, because of the pandemic and because of COVID, I am the only one who will be in that bookstore. I don't feel I should basically let anybody else be exposed to it. So I take chances, and I've been lucky and very fortunate and blessed. I have not had the problem. But if anybody is considering doing a bookstore, it's a wonderful thing to do. There's so many things you can play off from it. And all our books are donated, and our books are coming in with high quality. You might think of starting a bookstore if you have the room.
So does the library provide you a room for your bookstore?
We actually have an old house behind the library that the library owns. And they use most of it for storage, and I've got a small space for my books.
Okay. Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome.
Other questions? While I wait on those questions, I will mention a little bit about. Oh, okay. Grady, I guess. Patty, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Grady has asked. Grady from Macquarie County has asked, Patty, other than weeded library books, where do you obtain your books for your book sales?
We get all our books from anybody in Casey County. What they do is they will drop them off either at the bookstore or the library. Our library, because our books are coming in so pristine, our library is actually going through them, and if the donation books look better than what the library has, they'll swap them out, and I'll get what the library's got that's used and pretty well banged up, and they get the pristine books. What we also do, because we get all these books that are in excellent shape, we also have a program called Sustainable Shelves, where I take and I scan the books, and if a Sustainable Shelves wants those books, which will pay more than what we can get, we ship them, and Sustainable Shelves pays for the shipping, and the library gets the credit. So they can do, like right now they've got Dial a Story, and that's paid through what we collect off or have a credit with Sustainable Shelves, or they can buy books from them. So there's many ways that the Friends can do things with minimal amount of help and cost to us.
It's awesome. And Grady, I will tell you that too, if you're concerned about about having enough books for a book sale, if you're interested, some of those libraries that have, some of those friends that have book sales have books left over after the sale that they'll be glad to share with you. So if it's a volume issue, we can make sure that you have enough books for a book sale.
Oh, I will be glad to help. Every 6 months, I weed through my book sale, so that way my books only stay on the shelf for 1 year. So our members are always continuously getting new books, and that's exciting, and that's why we get more members. So if you need books, let me know, because before I ship them up to Frankfurt for recycling, you're more than welcome to them.
Thank you, Patty. I want, while we're waiting on another question, I'll mention, if you decide that you want to obtain a 501c3 for your friends group, if that's your goal, you will probably need to get a local attorney to file the paperwork. Hopefully you can find someone who will do it pro bono, because it's fairly expensive if you have to pay for that. But there are folks around the state who agree to do it, and it does take some time. We haven't done one in a few years actually, but I understand that the process has been streamlined somewhat, except the IRS is backlogged because of the virus, so it may take a little longer to get it. But the question would be, if that's the only reason you want to start a friends group, then if it's Dolly Parton Imagination Library, and I know there's been some interest in starting friends groups for that reason, then we want to talk to you about that and make sure that that it's the right way to go. There are some other options for handling the Dolly Parton money. But it's great to have the 501c3 because it opens you up to future funding opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise be open to.
Wayne, can I hit on that 501c3?
Yes, please.
Okay, I recently had two people come in and they were interested in being members, which I'm always happy to have. And they told me that if I can get them to volunteer for 40 hours a year, they will actually be able to get $500 each to give back to the Friends of the Library. Now, I haven't gotten the full details on how they're doing that, but somehow they got it through their insurance company that if they volunteer for a 501c3 organization, if they volunteer 40 hours in a year, they will get $500 a piece that will come back to the 501c3. So I guess what? I'm putting those two people to work.
Good. Yeah.
So there's really a lot out there. There's a lot of things that a person can do to really make this lucrative for your library.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you have any particular suggestions for groups that maybe, need a little help getting new members? Maybe maybe they need to bring in some new people, or they're kind of just stagnated a little bit.
Yeah. If your group's stagnant, one of the things first thing I would do is I would step back and say, go back to your plan and say, okay, what do we really need our friends group to do? And maybe you need to pare it down. Maybe you need to be more specific, or come up with an attractive program that your friends group could be involved in. Let's say you really need some help with the summer reading club is always a really big thing. Summer reading clubs are really important. I mean, I've seen the statistics, and we all know that kids don't read during the summer, and they need to. And we can really help out the schools and the educational process and the kids by getting those kids to read. So summer reading is really important. So maybe you need to focus on your friends supporting a particular project like the summer reading club, so that you can make a case for why it's important. Get volunteers and start with that, and then grow. I think maybe if you need to revitalize something, then you need to look at what you're doing, come up with a new plan, hit on something that people are really interested in, and go from there. That would be my suggestion. There's always you can always call for put out the word for volunteers, do some newspaper articles or some posters around the library so that people become aware of your friends, and maybe you'll catch that person who's going to light a fire. So those are just a couple of ideas. One of the things. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. When I'm going to butt in one more time.
Sure.
The reason why I'm doing this is the staff, when the staff sits out front, because I was at one time working in the library itself, we hear our customers who come in and get books, we hear what their concerns are and what they're interested in. And I've got, right now, I'm trying to get a volunteer to come up on this one, is they were interested in the seed catalog because, hey, guess what? It's spring, it's planting time. So that's now on the table. I just got a message from my contact person in the library, and it looks like we're going to be on for those who want to learn how to crochet. Now, this again is going to be a class that's going to be held, and we'll supply the crochet hooks and the yarn and we'll charge them a fee to take the class. So if the staff hears something that the community is interested in, this is where the staff can help the friends get going by saying, well, you know, that's an excellent idea. Why don't you contact this person who is somebody of the friends, and that will get the ball rolling for them.
Okay, great idea. And before we leave, I want to tell you, you've got my email address there. And here's what I would like. You can email me any questions you have, any follow up. We as I mentioned earlier, we have an email list where we communicate with the Friends chapters. Like Patty, we communicate with her and all the Friends chapters that we have that we know of. We communicate with them. And so if you would like to get on that list, just email me and let me know. Or if you have a question, let me know. We are, and we want the Friends of Kentucky Libraries. We want to help you any way we can in starting your Friends group. On May the 21st, I'm going to Greene County and Taylor County to visit with them with their Friends groups that they are starting. So if you'd be interested in me coming down and meeting with you, I'll be glad to do that. Just let me know and we can work out the schedule. And then finally, as I mentioned, in October, we will be having our annual meeting. And we hope to at this annual meeting to get folks there and do a lot of exchange, of sharing. In a few minutes there, you heard what they're doing, and it's just really inspiring to hear what all the other groups are doing. So we're hoping to have a really, really great annual meeting this time after a 3-year absence. We want to get everybody together because that's really what inspires people to go forward. So if you can get somebody from your friends group there, I think it would be really helpful. Ashley, I see Ashley, Jackson County. I don't know if I grew up in London, and so I'm down in London a lot. So I'd love to come over and visit with you. If we can get together, email me and we'll get a date for that. Any questions? I know your time's almost up, but if you have any questions, shoot them to me or email them to me, and we'll be glad to go from that. Monica, the annual meeting is the Saturday of the Kentucky Book Fair. This year that would be October the 29th, and it'll be in Lexington. We have our organizing committee hasn't met yet, but I'm assuming that's what's going to happen. That's the same day and same place, so you can usually go to our annual meeting and the book fair at the same, but squeeze in visiting the book fair too. So it's people like that. So we're going to have some announcements about our annual meeting coming up. So send me if you're interested in that information, please email me and I'll get that to you.
Great, thank you so much, Wayne. I'm just going to run through a couple of
Okay. A lot of fun. Thanks, everybody. I'm really glad to speak to you. It's fun to be back and fun to talk to you.
Yes. Thank you all for attending today. We thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services for their sponsorship of our services here at KDLA. And if you have any questions for us at KDLA regarding CE or certification, webinars, anything like that, please feel free to email us at that email address on the screen, and any questions about our online learning portal. And I do want to put a link in the chat right now for a quick survey about today's webinar. Please let us know any suggestions, how you felt about the webinar, any suggestions for other trainings. This webinar was recorded, and we'll have it in the online learning portal within about a week. Again, the PDF of the slides, as well as those two handouts that Wayne referred to. So there's the memorandum of agreement example and the bylaws example are both available there. And I know we have a couple people attending who are not registered in the portal. So I'll make sure to get those handouts emailed to you all so that you'll have access to them as well. And finally, if you're attending live, you'll get a certificate of attendance for being with us today, and that will be in your learner dashboard within about a week. So thank you all so much for attending. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate all of you. And whenever you're ready to exit, just close that browser or window on your computer. Thank you all and have a great afternoon.